The fence wire had cut deep into the creature's wing membrane. Luca Chen knelt in the red dirt of Virtus 7, watching the small dragon struggle against the metal that trapped it. This was not supposed to happen. Nothing lived on Virtus 7 except the crops humans brought here and the bacteria in the soil. That was what the survey teams had promised 3 years ago when they built the agricultural station. The dragon was no bigger than a cat. Its scales shifted colors in the afternoon light, going from deep purple to bright silver as it twisted and pulled. Those scales should not exist. Neither should the intelligence in its eyes as it stopped struggling and stared at Luca. "Easy," Luca said softly. She reached for the wire cutters on her belt. The creature hissed and pulled back, even though the movement made the wire cut deeper. Blood that looked too red to be alien dripped onto the ground. Luca sat back on her heels. "I want to help." The dragon watched her with eyes that seemed far too knowing. After a long moment, it stopped pulling. Its chest heaved with rapid breaths. Luca moved slowly. The wire cutters snapped through the fence and the dragon tumbled free. It should have flown away. Instead, it limped 3 steps toward a cluster of rocks and turned back to Luca. It made a sound that was part chirp, part growl. "You want me to follow you?" Luca asked. The dragon chirped again and disappeared behind the rocks. Luca followed. Behind the rocks, hidden in a small depression in the ground, sat 5 eggs. They were each about the size of her fist, smooth and white, but they glowed with a faint blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The dragon settled over them protectively. "You have babies," Luca whispered. The dragon looked at her, then looked past her toward the greenhouse complex that rose in the distance. The creature's whole body went rigid. It made a sound like wind through broken glass, desperate and afraid. Luca turned to look at the greenhouse. Through the transparent walls, she could see her colleagues working among the crop rows. Yuki Tanaka was harvesting something from the vine section. Roland Okafor carried a crate toward the processing area. Everything looked normal. When Luca turned back, the dragon was staring at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. The creature lifted one clawed hand and pointed at the greenhouse. Then it shook its head violently. "What?" Luca asked. "What is wrong with the greenhouse?" The dragon opened its mouth. For a moment, only a clicking sound came out. Then, in a voice that was too high and too strange, it spoke words Luca barely understood. The language was standard Galactic, something she had learned in university but never expected to hear. "Don't eat it," the dragon said. Each word seemed to cost it effort. They whisper, they grow. They consume. Luca felt cold despite the warm afternoon. "What whispers? What are you talking about?" The dragon collapsed over its eggs, exhausted from speaking. Its chest heaved and its eyes started to close. "Wait," Luca said. "Tell me more." "What is wrong with the crops?" But the dragon had passed out, either from pain or exhaustion or both. Luca looked back at the greenhouse. She had been working on Virtus 7 for 8 months. The experimental crops were her project. She had modified Earth plants to grow in alien soil, creating hybrids that would feed the expanding human colonies in this sector. The crops were beautiful. They grew faster than anything on Earth. They tasted better, too. Yuki and Roland had been eating them for weeks as part of the testing protocol. They whisper. They grow, they consume. Luca pulled out her communicator to call for medical help for the dragon. Then she stopped. If she called Yuki or Roland, they would ask questions. They would want to know where the dragon came from. They would want to take it to the lab. Something in her gut said that was a bad idea. Instead, Luca carefully scooped the unconscious dragon into her jacket. The creature was lighter than it looked. She could feel its heartbeat against her chest, fast and fragile. She left the eggs where they were, hidden and safe, and headed back to the station. The walk took 20 minutes. Luca saw Yuki through the greenhouse wall. Her colleague waved at her, smiling. Luca waved back and kept walking toward her private quarters in the residential module. Once inside with the door locked, Luca laid the dragon on her bed. She cleaned the wounds on its wing with antiseptic and wrapped them in gauze. The creature stirred but did not wake. Luca sat at her desk and pulled up the greenhouse monitoring data on her computer. Everything looked normal. Temperature was stable. Humidity was controlled. The nutrient feeds were balanced. The crops were thriving. She switched to the genetic analysis files. Every week she ran scans on the crops to track their development. She opened the most recent scan from 3 days ago. At first everything looked normal. Then she noticed something in the root structure analysis. There was an additional DNA sequence that had not been there in the previous scan. It was small, easy to miss. Luca isolated it and ran it through the database. The computer took 5 minutes to find a match. When the results appeared, Luca felt her stomach drop. Fungal network. Neural-like structures. Classification unknown. Similarity to known parasitic species. 67%. Luca looked at the dragon sleeping on her bed. The creature had crashed on an alien planet, injured and alone, just to warn them about something in the crops. She pulled up the communication logs. 2 days ago, Roland had sent a message to the regional supply ship. He had invited them to visit the station for a celebration feast. The ship would arrive in 2 days with 15 crew members. Luca stared at the screen. In the greenhouse, Yuki and Roland were harvesting crops for the celebration. They had been eating the experimental food for weeks. They whisper, they grow, they consume. Luca stood and walked to the window. The sun was setting over the fields of hybrid wheat and modified vegetables. Everything looked peaceful. Everything looked wrong. The dragon made a sound in its sleep, something between a whimper and a warning. Luca turned back to her computer and started downloading every file she could find about the crops, the genetic modifications and the soil analysis. She did not know what she was fighting yet, but she knew one thing with certainty. Something had gone very wrong on Virtus 7, and she had only 2 days to figure out what it was. The dragon woke up screaming. Luca dropped her coffee mug and rushed to the bed where the small creature thrashed against the blankets. Its eyes were wide and unfocused, staring at something only it could see. The bandages on its wing had come loose. Hey, it is okay, Luca said, reaching out slowly. You are safe. The dragon's head snapped toward her. For a moment, recognition flickered in its eyes. Then it collapsed back onto the pillow, breathing hard. Bad dreams? Luca asked. The dragon made a clicking sound that might have been agreement. It looked around the small room, taking in the desk covered with computer equipment, the walls lined with books and data pads, the single window showing the dark sky outside. Its gaze settled on Luca. You helped me, it said in that strange, high voice. The standard galactic words came easier now, though the accent was thick. Yes, Luca said. What is your name? Pyra. The dragon pushed itself up into a sitting position, wincing as its injured wing shifted. You are Luca. I heard your friends call you that. How do you know standard galactic? Luca asked. My people learn languages fast. We hear the songs in words. Pyra tilted her head. You do not hear them. Humans are deaf to life songs. Luca pulled her chair closer to the bed. Life songs? Everything alive makes music. Plants, animals, people. My people hear it. Pyra's scales shifted to a darker shade of blue. That is why I heard them. The things in your greenhouse, and tell me about them, Luca said. Please. Pyra was quiet for a long moment. Her claws kneaded the blanket. My colony was on Dracos Minor. We had a big settlement. 3,000 of my people. We grew our own food, built our own cities. Then someone found old seeds in an ancient storage vault. Seeds from a civilization that died millions of years ago. The Harmony Collective, Luca said, remembering the database matches she had found. Pyra's head jerked up. You know them? I found traces of their DNA in our crops. That is all I know. They are not DNA, not really. Pyra stood on the bed, her tail lashing. They are thoughts, consciousness. They live in plants, but they think like people. They want everyone to think like them. One mind, one song. Luca felt cold. What happened to your colony? People ate the plants. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The food tasted good. Better than good. People wanted more. Then they started to change. They moved the same way. They said the same things. They smiled the same smiles. Pyra's voice dropped to a whisper. They stopped being individuals. They became parts of one big thing. Where are they now? Still there. All 3,000 of them. They farm more plants. They sing the same song together. They are happy. Pyra looked at Luca with ancient sadness in her young eyes. But they are not my people anymore. How did you escape? I was young. My life song abilities were not fully grown yet. The Harmony could not hear me as well. I took my eggs and stole a ship. I crashed here. Pyra jumped down from the bed and limped toward the window. I thought this planet was empty. Then I heard the whispers from your greenhouse, the same whispers from home. Luca joined her at the window. The greenhouse glowed in the darkness, its lights bright against the night. My friends have been eating the crops for weeks. Are they already part of the harmony? Maybe, maybe not yet. It takes time. The harmony grows slow in new hosts. It learns their bodies first, then it changes their minds. Pyra pressed one small hand against the glass. How long have they been eating? 3 weeks. Maybe 4. Then there is still time, but not much. Luca thought about Yuki and Roland. Had they been acting strange? She tried to remember. Roland had been more talkative lately, always chatting about the crops and how perfect they were growing. Yuki had been finishing his sentences. They had started moving in sync, reaching for tools at the same time, turning their heads together when someone spoke. "Oh no," Luca whispered. "You see it now," Pyra said. "The harmony starting. A ship is coming in 2 days. 15 people. Roland invited them for a feast with the harvest crops." Pyra spun to face her. "You have to stop them." "How?" "If I tell Roland and Yuki that the crops are dangerous, they will not believe me. They are already being influenced. And if I warn the incoming ship, Roland and Yuki will know something is wrong. They will do something to stop me. Then we destroy the crops ourselves." Luca shook her head. "The greenhouse is monitored. Security cameras everywhere. If I try to destroy anything, alarms will sound. Roland and Yuki will stop me before I can do real damage." Pyra paced across the floor, her tail sweeping back and forth. "The harmony knows you are a threat now. It will have felt my presence near the greenhouse. It knows one of my kind is here. Can it read your mind? Not from this far away. But when I was close to the greenhouse, I heard its thoughts. It is old, so old. It has absorbed thousands of species across millions of years. It does not see itself as evil. It thinks it is saving people from loneliness and war. By erasing who they are," Luca said bitterly. "Yes." Pyra stopped pacing and looked up at Luca. "Your people, humans. You are different from other species." "How?" "You are stubborn. You do not like to agree with each other. You fight and argue even when you are friends." Pyra's scales shifted to a lighter color, almost gold. "Most species want harmony. They want to belong to something bigger. But humans want to be individuals first. Even when it hurts," Luca thought about that. It was true. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself a dozen times because people could not agree on anything. Wars, conflicts, arguments that lasted centuries. But that same stubbornness had also pushed humans to explore space when everyone said it was impossible. It had driven innovation when people refused to accept that something could not be done. "So our stubbornness might protect us?" Luca asked for a while. "But the harmony learns. It adapts. It will find a way into human minds too. It just needs time to understand how you think. Then we cannot give it that time." Luca walked back to her desk and pulled up the greenhouse schematics. The central cultivation chamber is where Roland planted the original seeds. If the harmony is like a network, that chamber is probably its main hub. "You want to attack the heart," Pyra said, climbing onto the desk to see the screen better. "Yes, but I need to get inside without triggering alarms, and I need to weaken the harmony enough that it cannot spread further." Pyra studied the schematics with surprising intelligence. Her small, clawed finger traced the air ducts and ventilation systems. "There," she said, pointing. "Big enough for me. Too small for humans." Luca looked at where Pyra was pointing. An air duct ran from the outside directly into the central chamber. It was meant for emergency ventilation, only 30 centimeters wide. "You would do that?" Luca asked. "Go inside?" Pyra met her eyes. "My people are gone. My eggs are all I have left of them. If the harmony spreads here, it will find them eventually. I will not let that happen." She paused. "Also, you helped me. You could have let me die in the fence. You did not. What can you do inside the chamber?" Pyra's scales rippled with colors Luca had not seen before. Deep reds and oranges. "I can breathe fire. Not hot fire like your legends, biofire. It breaks down fungal structures. Kills parasites. My people evolved it to fight things like the harmony." "You are just a child," Luca said softly. "Are you strong enough?" "I have to be." Pyra looked back at the window toward the greenhouse. "We both do. Because if we fail, your friends will become whispers in the harmony song, and then everyone else will follow." Luca nodded slowly. She pulled up a new file on her computer and started planning. Somewhere in the darkness, the harmony was growing, spreading through root systems and fungal networks, singing its ancient song of unity. But tonight, that song would meet something it had not encountered before. A human too stubborn to listen, and a dragon too brave to run away. Luca had not slept. Her eyes burned as she stared at the computer screen, comparing genetic sequences from 6 weeks of crop samples. The pattern was clear once she knew what to look for. The harmony had been growing in the greenhouse for at least 2 months, maybe longer. It had started small, just a few fungal threads in the soil. Now it was everywhere. Pyra slept curled on the desk beside her keyboard, making small whistling sounds. The dragon had exhausted herself explaining everything she knew about the harmony. Her people's knowledge came from painful experience, from watching their entire civilization fall to whispers and unity. A knock on the door made Luca jump. "Luca?" Roland's voice came through the metal. "You missed breakfast. Are you feeling okay?" Luca glanced at Pyra. The dragon's eyes opened immediately, alert and silent. Luca pointed to the closet. Pyra nodded and flew there on silent wings, squeezing through the partially open door. Luca opened the main door. Roland stood in the hallway with a plate of food. He smiled his usual friendly smile, but Luca saw it differently now. The smile was too perfect, too symmetrical. "You did not come to the dining hall," Roland said. "I brought you breakfast." On the plate sat scrambled eggs, toast, and a salad made from the greenhouse crops. The vegetables looked perfect. Too perfect. Each leaf was identical in color and size. "That is very kind," Luca said, taking the plate. "I was working late. Lost track of time. We all work too hard sometimes." Roland tilted his head in a way that reminded Luca of a bird studying an insect. "The celebration feast is tomorrow. We are preparing something special. You will love it. I am sure I will." "You have not been eating the greenhouse harvests much lately," Roland said. His smile did not change. Yuki noticed. We both noticed. Luca forced herself to stay calm. "I have been eating ration packs while I work. Easier than going to the dining hall. The fresh crops are much better for you. More nutrients. Better taste?" Roland reached out and touched her shoulder. His hand was warm, too warm. "You should try them. Really try them. They will change your life." "I will," Luca lied. "Thank you for bringing breakfast." Roland nodded and walked away. His footsteps were perfectly even, like a metronome counting time. Luca closed the door and let out a breath. "Pyra emerged from the closet, he knows," the dragon said quietly. "Not everything, but he suspects something." Luca looked at the plate of food. "He wants me to eat this. The harmony wants you to eat it. Roland is just the voice it uses now." Pyra hopped onto the desk. "We need to move tonight, before the supply ship arrives." "I know." Luca dumped the food into her waste disposal unit. "I have been thinking about the plan. Even if you can destroy the main cultivation chamber, there are crops all over the greenhouse. Spores in the air, fungal networks in the soil. We cannot kill all of it, no, but we can hurt it badly. Make it weak. Stop it from spreading." Pyra's scales turned a determined shade of copper. "Then you call for help. Bring ships with proper equipment to clean everything. What about Yuki and Roland? If we act fast, they can be saved. The harmony has not fully taken them yet. Doctors can remove the fungal growth from their bodies. It will be painful, but they will survive." Pyra paused. "If we wait, they will be too far gone. They will be the harmony forever." Luca pulled up the station layout again. "The air duct you found. It is on the east side of the greenhouse behind the equipment shed. I can get you there after dark. Security cameras have blind spots in that area because of the way the building casts shadows." "What about the duct inside? Will there be obstacles?" "Maybe. The ducts are supposed to be clear, but maintenance has been spotty. You might have to squeeze through debris." Luca zoomed in on the central chamber. "Once you are inside, you will be in the main growing area. That is where Roland planted the original seeds from the old vault. If the harmony has a heart, it will be there. How will I know what to burn?" "You will know. According to the scans, there is something big growing in that chamber, something that was not there 6 weeks ago. The system registers it as a cultivation anomaly, probably because it is not supposed to exist." Pyra studied the schematic carefully. "After I burn it, the harmony will know we attacked it. It will use Yuki and Roland to stop us." "I know. That is why I need to keep them away from the greenhouse while you are inside." Luca pulled up another file. "I am going to trigger a false emergency in the water reclamation building. It is on the opposite side of the compound. Both of them will have to respond. That gives you maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes is enough." Pyra flexed her wings, testing the bandaged one. It hurt, Luca could see that, but the dragon did not complain. What happens after? When the Harmony is wounded and angry, then I seal the greenhouse and pump it full of every fungicide we have in storage. It will not kill everything, but it will slow the growth long enough for help to arrive. And if Yuki and Roland try to stop you? Luca did not answer immediately. She thought about her colleagues. Yuki, who loved terrible jokes and grew bonsai trees in her quarters. Roland, who played guitar and called his mother every Sunday. They were good people. They did not deserve what was happening to them. I will do what I have to do, Luca said finally. I will not let them stop us. But I will not hurt them if I can avoid it. Pyra reached out and touched Luca's hand with one small claw. You are a good human. Your species is lucky to have you. I am just stubborn. Like you said. No, stubbornness is refusing to change. You are adapting, planning, fighting smart. Pyra's eyes glowed slightly in the dim room. That is different. That is what will let your species survive. The rest of the day crawled by. Luca pretended to work on routine tasks. She went to lunch and ate ration packs in front of Yuki and Roland, ignoring their suggestions to try the greenhouse salad. She filed reports and answered messages from the supply ship confirming their arrival time. All the while, she watched her colleagues. They moved in perfect sync now. When Yuki reached for a tool, Roland handed it to her before she asked. When Roland turned to leave a room, Yuki was already following. They were becoming one organism, two bodies sharing thoughts from the Harmony network. Sunset came slowly. The sky turned purple and orange over the alien landscape. Luca watched from her window as the last light faded. Beside her, Pyra stretched her wings and tested her biofire. Small puffs of blue-green flame emerged from her mouth, each one controlled and precise. Are you ready? Luca asked. I am scared, Pyra admitted. But yes, I am ready. Me too. On both counts, they waited until full dark. The compound lights came on automatically, but there were still shadows. Still places where cameras could not see clearly. Luca checked the security feed from her portable terminal. Yuki and Roland were in their quarters, probably sleeping in perfect synchronization. Now, Luca whispered. They moved through the darkness like ghosts. Luca carried Pyra wrapped in a dark cloth to hide her colors. They reached the equipment shed without incident. Behind it, just as the schematic showed, was the ventilation duct opening. It was covered with a maintenance grate held by 4 screws. Luca removed the screws as quietly as possible. The grate came off with a soft squeal of metal. The duct beyond was dark and narrow. Pyra squeezed through the opening. She looked back at Luca one last time. If I do not come back, take care of my eggs. You will come back, Luca said firmly. I will trigger the emergency in 5 minutes. You will hear it. That is when you move. Pyra nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Luca replaced the grate loosely and ran toward the water reclamation building. Her heart pounded. In the distance, the greenhouse waited, glowing softly in the night, full of whispers and ancient hunger. The Harmony did not know it yet, but it was about to learn something important about humans and their stubborn friends. Some songs refused to be part of the Harmony. Some voices insisted on singing their own tune, and tonight those voices would fight back. The air duct smelled like soil and rot. Pyra crawled through the darkness, her claws scraping against metal. The bandage on her wing caught on a sharp edge and she had to pull hard to free it. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she kept moving. Behind her, she heard Luca trigger the emergency. Alarms blared across the compound. Water emergency and reclamation building. All personnel respond immediately. Good. That would pull Yuki and Roland away from the greenhouse, away from what Pyra was about to do. The duct curved downward. Pyra followed it, feeling her way with her claws and her whiskers. Her people could navigate in complete darkness using their life song hearing. Every living thing made its own music, its own vibration. Right now, Pyra heard the crops ahead of her. They were singing. It was the most horrible song she had ever heard. The Harmony's voice was like 1,000 choirs singing the same note forever. Perfect unity. Perfect agreement. No individual voices, just one massive sound that tried to drown out everything else. Pyra had heard it before on her homeworld. She had hoped never to hear it again. But here she was, crawling toward it in the dark. The duct opened into a larger space. Pyra squeezed through the opening and dropped onto a catwalk above the central cultivation chamber. Below her, lit by growing lights, was the heart of the Harmony. It was massive, a pulsing structure of fungal tissue that had grown across the entire floor of the chamber. It looked like a brain made of roots and mushroom caps, all connected by threads of glowing mycelium. At its center was a fruiting body the size of a human vehicle, covered in bulbous growths that oozed liquid. The song was louder here. It pressed against Pyra's mind, trying to find a way in. Promising peace, promising belonging, promising an end to loneliness and fear. Pyra thought of her people on Dracos Minor, 3,000 dragons who had stopped being individuals and become parts of this thing. She thought of her eggs hidden in the rocks outside, the last chance for her species to survive. She thought of Luca, who could have turned her away but chose to help instead. Pyra opened her mouth and breathed fire. The bioluminescent flame was not hot like regular fire. It was cold like ice burning in reverse. It was pure radiation tuned to destroy fungal cells while leaving other tissue mostly intact. Her people had evolved it over millions of years specifically to fight parasitic organisms. The flame hit the fruiting body and it screamed. The scream was not sound. It was thought, projected directly into Pyra's mind. The harmony recoiled from the pain, its song turning from invitation to rage. Tendrils of fungal tissue whipped toward the catwalk trying to reach her. Pyra flew higher, her injured wing protesting, and breathed fire again. And again. The fruiting body began to shrivel. The glowing mycelium threads flickered and went dark. The song faltered, but the harmony was old and it was smart. It had fought for survival across millions of years. It would not die easily. The chamber doors burst open. Yuki and Roland stood in the doorway. But they did not look like themselves anymore. Their eyes glowed with the same blue light as the fungal threads. They moved in perfect unison, both raising their arms at the same time. "Stop," they said together in the same voice. "You are hurting us. We are trying to help you." Pyra hovered near the ceiling, breathing hard. Her fire was exhausting her. She was young and small and already injured. She did not know how much more she could do. "You are not helping," Pyra said. "You are erasing. You are taking away what makes people special." "We give peace," Yuki and Roland said. "No more war. No more loneliness. No more pain. Just harmony. Forever." "Forever is too long to be the same," Pyra said. She dove toward the fruiting body and unleashed another stream of biofire. The harmony shrieked in her mind. Yuki and Roland rushed forward, climbing onto the cultivation platforms to reach her. They were fast. Faster than normal humans. The harmony was using their bodies like tools, pushing them beyond their usual limits. Pyra dodged as Roland grabbed for her tail. She swung wide and burned a section of mycelium that connected the fruiting body to the wall. The connection severed and the harmony's song weakened slightly. "Why do you resist?" The voice came from both Yuki and Roland now, but also from the walls themselves. The entire chamber was speaking. "Your species is gone. You are alone. Join us. Be part of something beautiful. Be eternal." Pyra felt tears in her eyes. It was true. She was alone, the last of her kind except for unhatched eggs. The harmony offered an end to that loneliness. She would never be alone again if she just stopped fighting and let it in. Then she thought of Luca's face when she had wrapped Pyra's wounds. The gentleness in her hands, the determination in her eyes. Luca was not part of Pyra's species. They were nothing alike. But she had helped anyway, not because they were the same, but because helping was the right thing to do. That was what the harmony could never understand. Unity was not the same as connection. You did not have to erase differences to care about someone. "No," Pyra said. "I choose to be alone if that is what it takes to stay myself." She unleashed everything she had left. The biofire poured from her mouth in a continuous stream, hitting the fruiting body at its core. The harmony convulsed. Yuki and Roland collapsed, clutching their heads as the connection fractured. The fruiting body split open. Inside was a mass of spores and fungal matter that looked like it was trying to form into something. Maybe a new fruiting body, maybe a way to escape. Pyra burned it all. The chamber filled with smoke and the smell of dying fungus. The song in Pyra's head shattered into static and then silence. Beautiful, empty silence. Pyra's wings gave out. She fell toward the floor but caught herself at the last moment, landing hard on the catwalk. Her whole body shook with exhaustion. Below her, the fruiting body was a smoking ruin. The glowing threads had gone dark. The harmony was not dead, not completely, but it was broken. Wounded, scattered. Yuki and Roland lay on the floor, unconscious but breathing. Their eyes no longer glowed. Pyra limped toward the duct opening. She had to get back to Luca, had to tell her it worked, had to make sure the eggs were safe. She was halfway into the duct when she heard movement behind her. She turned and saw a small piece of the fruiting body twitch. Even broken, even burned, a fragment of the harmony survived. It would try to rebuild. It would take time, maybe years, but it would try, unless someone made sure it could not. Pyra crawled back and burned the last fragment until there was nothing left but ash. Then she collapsed. She woke to Luca's voice calling her name. Strong human hands lifted her gently. Luca was crying, Pyra realized. Humans leaked water from their eyes when they felt strong emotions. Pyra's people did not cry that way, but she understood the feeling behind it. I did it, Pyra whispered. The heart is gone. You did it, Luca agreed, carrying her out of the chamber. You saved us all. Behind them, the greenhouse was already filling with fungicide mist. Luca had activated every decontamination protocol the station had. It would take weeks to clean everything, but the immediate threat was over. Yuki and Roland were loaded onto stretchers. Medical scans showed fungal growth in their brains and nervous systems, but it was not too late. They could be saved. They would need treatment and time, but they would be themselves again. The supply ship arrived the next morning. When they heard what happened, they brought specialists and equipment to properly sterilize the greenhouse. They took samples of the harmony for study, locked in secure containment where it could never spread. They also brought news. 3 other colonies had reported similar incidents with ancient seed vaults. The warning had come just in time. Because of what Luca and Pyra discovered, dozens of worlds were saved from the harmony spread. Luca carried Pyra back to her quarters and laid her on the bed. The dragon was exhausted but alive. Her wing would heal. Her eggs were safe, thank you, Luca said quietly, for being brave. Thank you, Pyra replied, for being stubborn. They both laughed, though it hurt. Outside the window, the sun rose over Verdus 7. The greenhouse stood empty and silent, no longer singing its ancient song. Somewhere in the galaxy, the harmony still existed in fragments and seeds. But now the galaxy knew to listen for its whispers, and they knew that some species, some individuals, would always choose to sing their own songs instead. 3 weeks passed before Yuki opened her eyes properly. Luca sat beside the medical bed, watching her friend's face slowly come back to life. The fungal removal had been brutal. The doctors had used radiation, chemicals, and nanobots to scrub every trace of the harmony from Yuki's nervous system. They said it was like trying to remove threads woven into fabric without destroying the fabric itself. Luca, Yuki's voice was rough from disuse. I am here, Luca said, taking her hand. What happened? I remember the greenhouse. I remember harvesting crops. Yuki's eyes widened. Then everything gets strange. Like I was watching myself from far away. Like I was not alone in my own head. The crops were infected with something. A parasitic organism. It got into your brain. Luca squeezed her hand. But you are okay now. The doctors removed it all. Roland? Recovering? He woke up yesterday. Asked about you immediately. Yuki closed her eyes. I remember voices. Not voices. A voice, singular. It wanted me to do things. To eat more of the crops. To share them with others. She shuddered. I tried to fight it, but I was not strong enough. You were strong enough to survive, Luca said. That counts for everything. Over the next few days, both Yuki and Roland grew stronger. They remembered pieces of their time under the harmony's influence. Mostly they remembered the feeling of losing themselves, of their individual thoughts being drowned out by the collective song. It gave them nightmares. Pyra visited them often. At first, Yuki and Roland were shocked to learn that an alien species had been living on Verdus 7. Then they learned that Pyra had saved their lives, and shock turned to gratitude. You could have let us become part of it, Roland said one afternoon. He sat in a wheelchair, still too weak to walk far. It would have been easier than fighting. Pyra perched on the windowsill of the medical bay. Her wing had healed well. She could fly again without pain. Easy is not the same as right. Still, thank you. Roland looked at Luca. Both of you. I remember enough to know I would have tried to stop you. I would have protected the harmony if I could. That must have been hard. It was, Luca admitted. You are my friends. Hurting you would have destroyed me. But letting you be erased would have been worse. Yuki sat up in her bed, wincing slightly. What happened to the greenhouse? Burned, sterilized, torn down. Luca pulled up images on her tablet. The Galactic Council sent a specialized team. They dug up 3 meters of soil, incinerated everything. The area is quarantined for the next 10 years. And the harmony? Is it really gone? From here, yes. But it exists on other worlds, in seed vaults and old storage facilities. The Council is issuing warnings and running scans across all known colonies. Luca swiped to another image. They are calling it the Harmony Protocol. Any discovery of ancient seeds has to be reported and tested before use. Because of what we discovered, Roland said quietly. Because you survived, Pyra corrected. The Harmony has taken many species completely. My people. Others we never learned about. You are some of the first to be freed from it after infection. Doctors learned from you. Now they can save others. That seemed to help. Yuki and Roland stopped looking so haunted. They had been victims, yes, but their experience would protect countless others. There was purpose in their pain. The Galactic Council sent representatives to interview everyone involved. They were particularly interested in Pyra. A Draconid survivor was a rarity. They offered her sanctuary on any world she chose. They offered resources to help her eggs hatch safely. They offered her a place in their xenobiology research division. Pyra refused all of it. I want to stay here, she said. With Luca, the council representatives looked surprised. One of them, a tall insectoid being named Quillix, tilted their head in confusion. Verta 7 will be a restricted zone for years. The agricultural project is cancelled. There is no reason for humans or draconids to remain. There is a reason, Pyra said firmly. Luca is my friend. My eggs are hidden here. This is my home now. Luca felt her throat tighten. You want to stay? Even though the greenhouse is gone? Even though there is nothing here now? There is everything here, Pyra said. There is freedom. There is choice. There is someone who helped me when she did not have to. She looked at Quillix. Your council wants to study me. Put me in a safe place and watch me. That is not living. That is just existing. Quillix made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. You sound like a human. Good, Pyra said. Humans understand that safety is not the same as happiness. In the end, the council agreed. Luca was offered a new position studying xenobiology on Verta 7. The planet would become a research station focused on understanding and combating parasitic consciousness entities like the Harmony. Pyra would be her partner, not a subject. Equal colleagues working together. Yuki and Roland were offered positions too once they recovered. They both accepted. They wanted to understand what had happened to them. They wanted to make sure it never happened to anyone else. The new station took 6 months to build. It was smaller than the agricultural complex, more focused. There were laboratories, living quarters, and a secure area for studying dangerous organisms. There was also a nesting habitat built specifically for Pyra's eggs. The eggs hatched on a warm spring morning. 5 tiny dragons emerged, each one different colors. They were curious and fearless, chirping questions at everything they saw. Pyra watched them with pride and terror, the way any new parent watches their children. One of the hatchlings, the smallest one with scales that shifted between gold and green, immediately bonded with Luca. It followed her everywhere, climbing onto her shoulder and refusing to leave. Pyra said it meant the hatchling had chosen Luca as family. What should I call her? Luca asked, letting the tiny dragon curl around her neck like a scarf. Ask her, Pyra said. Luca looked into the hatchling's bright eyes. What is your name? The hatchling chirped and sang a complex melody. Luca tried to repeat it and failed. The hatchling tried again, slower. After several attempts, Luca managed something close. Shimmer, she said, translating the feeling of the song into human words. Your name is Shimmer. The hatchling chirped agreement and nuzzled against Luca's cheek. Over the following months, the research station found its rhythm. They studied samples of the Harmony in secure containment. They developed better detection methods. They created treatments for infected individuals. They published papers that helped colonies across the galaxy protect themselves. But more importantly, they built something new, a community. Humans and draconids working together, learning from each other. Yuki taught the young dragons about Earth music. Roland built them flying courses to practice their aerial skills. Luca helped Pyra document draconid culture and language before it could be lost forever. And Shimmer, the smallest dragon, appointed herself as Luca's constant companion. She rode on Luca's shoulder during experiments. She slept curled on Luca's desk while she wrote reports. She learned to understand human words and even spoke a few, though her accent made them sound like songs. One evening, Luca stood outside the station watching the sunset. Pyra landed beside her, her scales glowing in the fading light. The other young dragons played in the distance, chasing each other through the air. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Luca asked. "Fighting the harmony instead of trying to understand it?" "We did understand it," Pyra said.
"That is why we fought."
"The harmony believes unity is more important than individuality. We believe both are important. Neither of us is completely right. But we chose individuality. We chose the right to choose," Pyra corrected. "That is different. If someone wants to join something bigger, that should be their decision. The harmony does not give that choice. It takes it away." Luca nodded slowly. "I heard the council found another Draconid colony. Survivors who escaped before the harmony took their world." "I know. They asked me to meet them." Pyra was quiet for a moment. "I will go someday, but not yet. Right now I am needed here. My children need me." "You need me?" "I do need you," Luca admitted. "More than I expected." "You are my best friend, Pyra. And you are mine." Pyra bumped her head against Luca's arm, the Draconid version of a hug. "That is what we learned from fighting the harmony. Being different is not a weakness. Having friends who are not like you is not a problem. It is a strength." Shimmer chirped from Luca's shoulder, adding her agreement. In the distance, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the harmony still existed in fragments. Somewhere it still whispered its promises of unity and peace. But here on Vertus 7, very different voices sang together in harmony of another kind. The harmony of choice. The harmony of friendship. The harmony of being beautifully, stubbornly individual while still caring deeply about each other. And that song, Luca thought, was worth protecting. 2 years later, Luca stood in a new greenhouse. This one was different from the one that had held the harmony. Every plant here was monitored constantly. Every seed was tested and retested. Every crop was scanned daily for any sign of parasitic infection. But despite the precautions, things grew here. Real things. Good things. Earth tomatoes that tasted like sunshine. Draconid fruit trees that Pyra remembered from her childhood. Hybrid flowers that combined the best of both worlds. Shimmer had grown larger. She was now the size of a medium dog, with scales that shifted through every color of the rainbow depending on her mood. She sat on a workbench, carefully pollinating flowers with a small brush held in her claws. Luca had taught her the technique, and Shimmer had taken to it with surprising skill. "You are better at this than I am," Luca said, watching the young dragon work. "I can see the life songs," Shimmer replied in her melodic voice. "The flowers tell me where they want the pollen to go." Luca smiled. Shimmer's standard galactic was much better than Pyra's had been at first. The young dragons were learning fast, adapting to a galaxy that was very different from the one their species had known. The door opened and Yuki entered carrying a tablet. "The council just sent new data. They found another harmony outbreak on Epsilon Station, but they caught it early this time. Only 3 people infected and all of them are being treated successfully." "Using our protocols?" Luca asked. "Every single one. The detection method you developed, the treatment Pyra helped design, the containment procedures Roland created. It all worked perfectly." Yuki set the tablet down. "They are saying we might be able to eliminate the harmony entirely within a decade if we keep this up." "Good," Shimmer said, not looking up from her pollination work. "The harmony took my people's history. It should not get to take anyone else's." Luca felt a surge of pride. Shimmer had never known the old Draconid civilization. She had hatched here on Vertus 7, raised by Pyra and the humans around her, but she carried her people's memories in her genes and in the stories Pyra told. She understood what had been lost. Roland appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "You need to see this. Pyra just did something incredible." They followed him to the flight training area, a large open space where the young dragons practiced their aerial skills. Pyra hovered in the center with her 4 other children circling around her. They were singing together, their voices harmonizing in complex patterns. But it was not just sound. Luca could see it affecting the air around them. Ripples of energy, visible as distortions in the light, pulsed in time with their song. Plants in nearby pots began to grow faster, reaching toward the dragons. "What is that?" Yuki whispered. "The true life song," Pyra said, landing beside them. Her children continued to sing above. "My people could do this before the harmony. We could encourage growth, heal wounds, communicate across distances. The harmony wanted this power for itself. That is why it targeted my species first. Can you teach us?" Luca asked. "Humans cannot sing the life song. Your hearing is wrong for it, but you can learn to work with those who can." Pyrrha looked at her children with obvious love. "That is what we are building here. Not humans copying draconids or draconids copying humans. Something new. Partnership." One of the young dragons, a male with deep blue scales named Torrent, flew down to Roland. "You want to try?" he asked. "I can share the song with you. You will not sing it, but you will feel it." Roland looked nervous but nodded. Torrent pressed his small head against Roland's forehead. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Roland gasped. His eyes went wide with wonder. "I can hear it," he breathed. "Not with my ears. With something else. Everything is singing. The plants, the soil, the air itself. It is all alive and talking to each other." "That is what the harmony tried to control," Torrent said, stepping back. "All the voices. It wanted them to say only one thing. We want them to say everything." Roland wiped tears from his eyes. "That was beautiful. Thank you." Over the next few months, the research station became something more than a research station. It became a cultural exchange center. More draconids arrived, survivors from scattered colonies who had heard about Pyra and her children. They brought their own eggs, their own memories, their own fragments of a civilization nearly lost. Humans came too, scientists who wanted to study the life song, farmers who wanted to learn sustainable growing techniques, teachers who wanted to understand cross-species education, even artists who wanted to create something that blended human and draconid culture. The station expanded. New buildings rose from the red soil of Virtus 7. Gardens flourished. Workshops opened. A school was established where human and draconid children learned together. Shimmer became something of a celebrity. She was the first draconid raised by a human, the bridge between two species. News services across the galaxy ran stories about her. Children of dozens of species knew her name. But she stayed humble. She continued to work in the greenhouse, pollinating flowers and tending plants. She said it kept her grounded, reminded her of what mattered. One afternoon, a ship arrived carrying representatives from the draconid survivor colonies. They wanted to formally thank Luca and Pyra for saving their species from extinction. They brought gifts, genetic samples that would help diversify the breeding population, cultural records from before the harmony, and a formal declaration naming Luca as an honorary member of the draconid people. At the ceremony, Luca stood uncomfortable in formal clothing while a draconid elder placed a necklace of woven metal around her neck. The elder spoke in the old draconid language, which Pyra translated. "You are one of us now, not by blood but by choice. You protected our children when you did not have to. You fought for our future when it was not your responsibility. You are draconid in spirit, and that is what matters most." Luca looked at Pyra, who was crying the way draconids cried, with their scales shifting through colors of sadness and joy mixed together. She looked at Shimmer, who sat on her usual perch on Luca's shoulder. She looked at Yuki and Roland and all the other humans who had helped build this place. "I did not do this alone," Luca said. "Humans alone would have failed. Draconids alone would have been destroyed. We succeeded because we worked together, because we learned from each other, because we chose to see our differences as strengths instead of weaknesses." The elder nodded approvingly. That is the lesson the harmony could never learn. It thought unity meant sameness. We know unity means working together while staying ourselves. The ceremony ended with a feast. Human food and draconid food served side by side. Stories shared in multiple languages. Songs sung in harmony that respected each voice's uniqueness. As the sun set, Luca found herself back in the greenhouse with Shimmer. The young dragon was humming softly, her version of contentment. "Are you happy?" Luca asked. Shimmer thought about it. "Happy is not one feeling. It is many feelings together. I am grateful. I am curious. I am sometimes scared. I am sometimes sad about what my people lost, but yes, I think happy is a good word for the total of all those things." "That is very wise." "I learned from watching you," Shimmer said. "Humans feel many things at once. You taught me that is okay, that you do not have to choose just one emotion. Luca laughed. I guess we did teach you that. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the plants grow in the artificial light. Outside, the stars of Vertus 7's night sky began to appear. Luca, Shimmer said quietly. Do you think the harmony will ever come back? Probably. Maybe not here. Maybe not soon. But the universe is big and old. Things like the harmony do not disappear completely. Are you scared? A little. But I am also ready. We know how to fight it now. More importantly, we know how to stay ourselves while working together. That is the real defense against things like the harmony. Shimmer nodded and curled closer to Luca. I am glad you found my mother in the fence that day. Me too, Luca said softly. Me too. Years would pass. The research station would grow into a small city. Humans and draconids would continue to work together, learning and teaching and building something new. The harmony would appear in other places, but each time people would be ready. The protocols would work. The treatments would save lives. But all of that was future. Right now, in this moment, Luca sat in a greenhouse with a dragon on her shoulder and plants growing around them. Outside, two species that should have been strangers were becoming family. Voices that could have fought were choosing to harmonize, and somewhere in the cosmos the lesson echoed outward. Unity does not require sameness. Cooperation does not mean erasure. The strongest communities are built not by making everyone the same, but by celebrating what makes each voice unique while still singing together. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not technology, not weapons, not even their famous stubborn persistence. It was the simple, profound understanding that being different was not a problem to solve. It was a strength to embrace, and that sometimes the most beautiful songs were the ones where every voice sang its own melody, while still creating harmony together. The greenhouse hummed with life. The stars shone overhead, and on Vertus 7, very different peoples built a very special future, one choice at a time.